All right, just wanted to give a quick overview of the NC Miata I'm going to be running in Club Spec this year in class CSX. So I actually just finished the car as far as I'm going to finish it for the 2024 season. Been working on it ever since the class was really announced. The most recent additions have been the Ecutech ECU tune, as well as the set of RT660s just arrived, and I got those mounted and balanced. Been getting a couple questions about the car, so I just figured I would put this together, go over the car a little bit, and share really as much as I can. And if anyone has questions, I mean, by all means, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to help answer anything and get some more cars out there so we can all have fun together on the track. So for starters, this is a 2012 NC2 Miata, and it is the base trim. So that means that it came with a 5-speed transmission and an open differential. So that was the first thing that I had to address, was swapping over to a 6-speed from an NC 2/3 Miata, as well as putting a LSD, factory LSD diff in the car, just the pumpkin. I didn't actually swap over the carrier and everything. I just swapped the internals of the differential. As you can see, the Falcon RT660s are on the car, as well as the Spec MX5 wheels, which are 17x8. They're really great wheels. I actually kind of like how they look as well. For the ride height, you can see I'm running it pretty low. I'm just a tad bit higher than the Spec MX5 ride height, which is originally what I had it set at, but I did have an issue at Summit Point Motorsports Park the other weekend where the tire actually pulled part of the fender on the passenger front when I dropped a tire. So I actually have the car raised a bit higher than what a Spec MX5 would be. Raise it about 0.2 inches taller per corner to keep the corner balance the same. You can see that I have the OEM Mazda hardtop on the car. I have the logos on the car now, as well as the numbers. You can see in there that I have the Blackbird Fabworks GT3 roll bar, which required the deletion of all of the interior plastics, or most of them. I do have some sound deadening in there that I put down as well, in addition to some carpet or fabric, just to maybe make it a little bit quieter. Not like it really needs it. It's mostly a track car. In here you can see that I have the HTER 400s, which are halo seats for OMP installed. They're mounted on PCI seat rails. I don't know if you can see the logo down there, but they are on PCI seat rails. I've got Safecraft harnesses for the driver and Schroth harnesses for the passenger. You can see all the Garmin Catalyst hardware and everything right in there. I do have to add, I might do this before VIR, like a little collar to help prevent the seat belts from sliding side to side like that. You can see back in here all of the interior that is gone, but it does have some fabric down in place. Little shift knob, just a Delrin shift knob right there. But everything else is pretty much standard. It is a spec class after all, so it's not all that involved in the interior. I do have the resistors and everything wired into the stock airbag seatbelt wiring underneath the seats, so there's no chance of an airbag going off, and decreases lights on the dash. Let's actually go underneath the hood, talk a little bit about under the hood. All right, So here you can see the Mazda Motorsports cold air intake right here. You can also see that I have a Moroso expansion tank, aluminum expansion tank right there. I actually had installed that prior because I was tracking this car before Club Spec was even announced, but I was thrilled that it was announced. You can see the intake down here. You do have to take the bumper off in order to install that piece. I am having a little bit of suspension noise, and I think others have had this as well. So the lock nuts on the suspension, and it's this lock nut that goes on the stem of the actual shock. For some reason or another, my driver's side will not go down all the way. I have all the other corners down all the way, but this one, maybe it's a rolled over thread or something like that, but whatever I have tried does not get that down all the way. So my suspension has a little bit of a noise. If you guys can hear that, I'm not sure if it's coming over on camera. It's not bad, but it is just noticeable. Otherwise, the suspension really is not terrible for street use. I know that people have been like, oh, well, it's 700-pound front I-box springs and 400-pound rears. It's really not that bad. You definitely could street this, just depending on how hardcore you are. Of course, if this were going to be a more permanent street car, I would not have gone with the Halo seats. But everything else here is pretty standard. Stock engine, just the Ecutech tune. It does have .4 brake fluid in it, as well as I am running a Hawk ER1 brake pads in there. Another thing that's been asked is the shock tower brace. So because this is a base, it actually does not come with the shock tower brace. I believe that only came on the Grand Touring and the Club models. Now, I might be wrong on that, but I believe that's the case. So people have asked questions about can we drill holes in the shock tower braces to access the Penske adjusters? I think the answer to that question is it has to be yes, because these adjusters actually don't fit under the stock shock tower brace. And what all of the Spec MX-5 cars do is they drill a hole in the shock tower brace. And just come over to the bench. I actually bought this from an SMX car. So it's not installed right now, but it'll just give you guys an idea of what it looks like. So here's that hole. And I'm not even gonna stress too much about installing this right now. This will just give you an idea. So there's no way that you would be able to even run the Penske adjusters with this shock tower brace installed. So I'm all for drilling a hole in that for ease of access to the adjusters. Pardon the mess. Okay. So what's going on in the trunk then? Let me go back there. Nothing really exciting back there. I don't even know if you guys can see this. I'll give it some light. Let's see if I can, come on. So I have the plastics out right now just for purposes of adjusting the rear shocks. But yeah, it's pretty straightforward back here. You can access the adjusters through the inside of the car. You can see the actual fabric right back there. So if you were to cut holes in the fabric, you could reach from the inside, but that's going to be quite a challenge. I actually prefer to do it through the trunk. It has tow hooks on it. That's pretty obvious. It's running a Goodwin Racing muffler on it, the one that's actually legal for the class. And what else is going on? That's all that really comes to mind. The car handles and drives great, the limited amount that I have driven it. I've only taken it to a shakedown event at Summit Point Motorsports Park, so it's still kind of untested at this point. VIR time trials is actually going to be the real teller, but I'm very hopeful that it'll go very well. The car is so much better than stock. For those of you who have tracked the stock NC Miata on the stock suspension, yeah, it leaves quite a bit to be desired with the body roll and responsiveness of the suspension to your inputs. I think I'll put the car up in the air now, and I'll take some wheels off and I'll show you guys some suspension. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'm very happy to help answer any questions I can. I'll send anyone pictures of the car if they want to see a specific aspect. Really trying to help everyone out to get more and more people out on track. And yeah, it is going to be a blast. It's a really fun chassis, really fun car, and I'm thrilled that the SCCA has introduced this. So let's get underneath the car. So I opted for all new control arms. You can see this is the front Penske right here. One thing that has been coming up is different colored bump stops. So the bump stops that I have here are actually green or a bluish teal color. You have your 700-pound spring, Eibach spring up front, followed by the helper spring, and you have a little plastic collar here. I don't know if you can see that, to help you keep the helper spring aligned. There is a little plastic spacer in here as well, and it's hard to show with it all installed on the car. But you can see this piece right here. You can see that. It's actually a plastic spacer that goes in there and sits on the bump stop. If you look at the Penske diagrams, you'll be able to find out how to properly put the front and rear shocks together. If we look over here, you can count some threads to get an idea for ride height. If you set your car to about 20 threads exposed at the bottom, that should be a good starting point. Now everyone's alignment will vary, and corner balancing will probably vary as well. So, but that's just to get you started. You can see that these are the brake ducts that are installed. I don't have them plumbed up yet. I'm actually just going to run it as is for the time being. Anything else that I can think of? Oh, you can see the configuration of the sway bar end links. Really putting that spacer conveniently so that it is away from the sway bar as well as the bottom control arm mount, so the sphericals have full articulation. And that's pretty much the front suspension. If anyone has any particular questions about it, feel free to ask. You can see that my dust guards are of course gone because of the brake ducts. I also have the ARP studs in the front there, along with the upgraded RX-8 front hubs. We move over to the rear. The rear is maybe a little bit more involved just because it's a 5-link suspension rather than a AA arm. So looking at the Penske, just a good starting point for ride height. If you want to have approximately, I don't know, 15 threads exposed at the bottom here, you could even have more. That'll get you in a good starting place before you align the car. Again, these are all new control arms because I actually found that, unfortunately, the bushings in the control arms were all dry rotted and done, so I had to replace those. Again, you can see, I believe it's a 400-pound spring from Eibach in the rear. You have your little nest or cup right here that helps to seat the Eibach spring as well as hold the helper spring. And if I pull this down a little bit, let's see if I can, you can actually see the plastic spacer in there along with the helper spring. And that's just how they go together. I would definitely recommend, again, looking at the diagrams for a definite way of putting them together. You can see the sway bars down here. Again, the spacers are sorted so that it has proper clearance and the sphericals can articulate. You'll notice that this gap right here is actually rather close. It's one thing that I was concerned with when putting it together. But even when the car goes down the ground, it doesn't come in contact with that at all. If you're interested in how the lower shock mount goes on the rears, you have this kind of conical spacer piece that slides onto the stud here on the upright. Not really a stud, more of like a collar. And then you have your fasteners that go through here. My Penske's shipped with these stainless, or these steel collars that were inside of them. Let me go over to the bench real quick and I'll show you what they look like. Everything's a mess here. So these are the steel collars. Let's see if I can get down here. So these were actually inside this spherical lower mount for the shock. So you have to remove these. They're on either side. They slide into the spherical. One goes in this way, and of course the other one goes in this way. So you should have 4 altogether, 2 for the driver's side and 2 for the passenger side. Pretty straightforward, but if you have any questions about how it goes together, again, feel free to reach out.